This is release question 206 for CAHSEE Math. It says, what is the solution of the system of equations shown above? If you didn't watch 205 and you're watching this one, I would highly recommend that you stop right now, go back and watch 205 and see alternate ways to solve these problems. I talked about 3 different ways to solve it. In the previous one, in 205, we used the linear combination method, but I think in this one, since we have a variable equals and then everything else on the other side, I think this one's going to be easier to use the substitution method instead. And so let's do that here. Since y equals 2x, I'm going to take 2x right here and I'm going to plug it in right in there. And so let's see what we get when we do that. So if I plug in 2x, this is going to be, let's write this down, this is the substitution method. In the previous example, in 205, it wasn't quite as easy to use the substitution method. We would have had to solve for x or y first, but here we don't have to solve for x or y. It's already solved for us in terms of y. So we can just say 2x, plugging that in. I'm going to put that in parentheses because I plugged it in. I like to use parentheses a lot when I plug things in. 2x would equal 3x minus 5. If I subtracted 3x from both sides, this would allow me to get one step closer at least to solving for x. So that would cancel out here and here. 2x minus 3x would be a negative x equals negative 5. And I could divide both sides by negative 1. It's like there's, let's write that in a different color. It's like there's an invisible 1 right there. And so we'd have dividing both sides by negative 1 would leave me with x equals positive 5. So this is one part of my answer. And it looks like that actually eliminates choices A, B, and D if I did this right. So I'm thinking choice C is the right answer, but again, always good to double check and make sure that the whole answer jives with what you have. So let's put these two things together. Let's make them kind of flow together here. You could have picked this equation instead of this one, but this one looked a little easier to use to me. So I'm going to say y here equals 2 times x, 2 times, we just solved for x, it was 5. So y would equal 10. And it looks like after doing that, that just makes the answer more solid in my mind. I'm pretty darn sure then that that's got to be the right answer, 5 and 10. And you can always double check your answers by plugging them back in. Let's do that mentally here quickly. We have y is 10. Would that equal 3 times 5 minus 5? 3 times 5 would be 15. Minus 5 would in fact be 10. And does 10 equal 2 times 5? Yes, it does. So if we plug those back in, it checks in both. And so let's make, just like the previous one though, let's make a little note here. We could use linear combination. That would be a little trickier here, I would say, but you could actually multiply one of these by negative 1, and you'd have y equals 3x minus 5. You'd have negative y equals negative 2x. You could cancel the y's out and solve for x that way. That's one way you could use linear combination instead. Or, just like before, you could actually plug in the answers and check and see which ones work. So that would be, I would say, the last resort, but you could fall back on that and use that to your advantage. So plug in the answers and see what choice works. But any one of those 3 ways you use, in this case I thought substitution was easiest, but any one of those 3 ways you use, your answer should be choice C.